Casting stuff or directors in general. How awkward is it to hire people for unattractive characters, as in their whole role is being fat or ugly? You know, I was thinking about it, and personally I'd be happier getting a role for being fat or ugly than losing a role for not being attractive enough. Yeah, I keep thinking of that post that circulated around the internet that says something like, apply for the role of ugly unattractive characters because if you get the role, you get to be in a movie. But if you don't get the role, then you're not ugly enough. Obviously, that isn't necessarily the reason you wouldn't get the role, but it feels like it fits here anyway. I spent a few years in LA going to auditions. Some of the roles I got cast in include overweight jogger, fat guy with beard, and guy waiting in line for donuts, which was actually not a specifically fat guy audition, more a hipster, which was also a lot of the roles I went out for. It wasn't that awkward. And I got to know a lot of dudes who kind of look like me just from seeing them at the same auditions. Most awkward audition was for a Polish tire commercial where I had to be topless. I'm Polish, but I'm not sure if I ever saw a tire commercial with a topless fat dude. Maybe it's because there is a lot of topless fat dudes on the TV internet IRL, so it just didn't really stand out. I work at a theater school. The acting students are typically striking looking in some way. Strikingly beautiful, strikingly gaunt, strikingly unsettling, strikingly kind. The fat students are usually a bit big but also very strong and agile. The ugly students are ugly in a unique and interesting way, not merely less attractive than their peers, but positively more ugly. They're both the same distance from clean, but in different directions. This is usually a selling point for them, and they know it. Someone who looks fat and lazy but has the stamina to perform all day is an absolute prize. Someone whose selling point is his train wreck of a face knows exactly what he looks like, and in conjunction with his performance skills, has a very sellable product. Remember that most roles have an audition process. You subscribe to or ask your agent to keep an eye out for roles you are confident you can play. Most actors aren't after a Juliet, a Hamlet. They are after roles that fit their description and skill set. Short, plump ginger-haired woman with a maternal smile in her late 40s is a role certain actors will find and send in a headshot for. Just like Hispanic, unattractive, 50 plus lbs overweight man, lazy eye or missing teeth desirable will catch the eye of others. You apply for the roles. Professional actors are confident self-starters after a job that pays, that gets them seen, that lets them show off their range, so as to continue building their career. This brings to mind Adam Driver, striking but not conventionally attractive, or Steve Buscemi, who was called ugly in Fargo. David Harbour from Stranger Things auditioned for the role of the Blob in one of the X-Men movies and was told he was too fat. There's also a fat comment on his character, Red Guardian in Black Widow trailer. I've been a professional actor for over 20 years and I can say, not awkward at all. If you have an interesting look and you have signed up for and showed up for a casting, you know the deal. Ugly actors aren't less smart or self-aware than good-looking ones. For example, little people or dwarfs. They get into acting knowing that they will more likely be an elf in a Christmas special than end up like Peter Dinklage, but they want to act regardless. Bottom line, we are all too needy and self-obsessed to feel awkward, even the ugly ones. I love the if you are interesting looking. Hope for me yet. I read that the actress that played Dolores Umbridge was told by friend OMG you would be perfect for that role, and then she read that Umbridge was described as toad-like in the books and was like, wow, thanks. I remember watching some interview with Jason Isaacs, and he had something similar, if not opposite. He talks about always being cast in these powerful, intimidating roles, like Malfoy and the Dragoon in Patriot, while describing himself as a nervous, Jewish mess. I've thought about this a lot, especially with kids. The little girl in Desperate Housewives who was the fat kid Eva Longoria's character's kid, pretty sure that was her storyline. How does a small child grow up with self-esteem when what she is known for is being the fat kid on that TV show? Kind of reminds me of Neville having to wear a fat suit and crappy teeth throughout filming in the later couple movies up till the last one. He said it was really hard being known as the loser of the movies. To actually answer the question that nobody has directly, not awkward at all. People will absolutely jump at the chance to be the ugly one. They don't really care. It might be awkward mentally for them, maybe, but it's nothing personal and they know it. Just another job opportunity. Like a classic meme goes, if someone paid you $200 but had to call you ugly, would you take it? Of course, I'm ugly, not stupid. I came for answers and you're the only one who answered. Thanks. Honestly, the question is asked and everyone wants to talk about what shows this happened in, which directors, and how subjective ugly is. You actually answered. Thanks. I knew a male actor, haven't seen him in years though, who is always typecast for certain character roles because of his distinctive looks. He's had a pretty successful career, but when he told me about his work in different roles, I couldn't help but notice that he carried a certain sadness about not being the heroic figure that everybody loves. He had come to terms with his predicament. In becoming an actor was in part a reaction against being an outcast and being bullied, but there was still a longing to be beautiful, loved and admired. Steve Buscemi is the ideal male human. I was watching the Curb Your Enthusiasm episode where Larry thinks he's being sat in the ugly section in a restaurant. I was wondering how those actors felt knowing that they were being cast to be the people in the ugly section. Table for two please. Smoking or non-smoking hot? My friend works part-time as an actor. He plays rat face bogans or other crappy humans. He knows he's a 5 in good lighting. The film industry intentionally makes him a 3 on camera. He doesn't mind. It's a job and he knows the limits of his face. That guy is gonna work forever. I wanted Mary Ann on Gilligan's Island ugly, not Cornelius on Planet of the Apes ugly. TV ugly, not ugly ugly. I've been called ugly, pug ugly, fugly, pug fugly, but never ugly ugly. I remember watching an episode of Game of Thrones that featured a brothel in one scene and Walder Free's ugly daughters in another. I wondered what was the harder call to make home for a young actress. Hey mom and dad, I got the part. They said I'd be perfect to play a hideous, completely undesirable woman, or hey mom and dad, I got the part. They said I'd be perfect to play a naked writhing prostitute. The daughters aren't ugly. They all look like they've just been made ugly, not glasses and overalls style. Their skin is dull, the color cut of their clothing unflattering, as opposed to very nicely made poor clothes that are still flattering. Their hair looks dirty and is styled poorly for their faces. Plus no mascara when every other actor has mascara on makes a big difference. Wore my eye patch to a casting call that was requesting facial deformities, other injuries. A woman came up to me and asked what was under the patch. When I showed her that there was in fact no eye, I got to jump ahead in line. Cost as a fricked up Solidar extra in a Revolutionary War show. Had smallpox one day, lay in the infirmary the next, stuck in the mud another day. Pretty good food and money, neat experience. All that to say, no one has an iota of shame. Own that crap. Hello, I've made a few indie low budget films, acted in more than a few, and have had a hand assisting on crew. For the process I've witnessed, those in charge were pretty straightforward with everything as far as what the role was. Example, the first role I was ever casted for was a smaller part in an indie slasher. I was told I looked like a smarmy dong, and once I started acting the part they casted me immediately. This is nothing new for me. For whatever reason I always look like I'm brooding or glaring. I guess it's the guy version of RBF. They didn't mean it in a bad way, either. When they talked about my look, it was all for the sake of the camera, and when they got to know me they learned quickly I'm very easy to get along with. What's more, talent and that certain look brought in quite a few inquiries for availability to play villains, bullies, corporate shills, and etc. It ain't much, but it's honest work. The same can be said about other roles. If a role needed a bigger person, once the casting crew found their candidates, they were straightforward in letting them know what the role was. Of course they were respectful, but transparency and respect were key so that everyone felt comfortable on set, and especially if those characteristics became the butt of a joke. To be frank, though, I've never met an actor who was delusional with their appearance because they understood the camera is objective. This isn't to say they don't exist, but that's my experience. I remember that when I was a kid, I was always so offended that I'd always be cast as the ugly funny roles. The old lady pirate in Pirates of Penzance, or the funny sidekick, the one who couldn't sing in a chorus line. But then I became a drama teacher and started casting kids in roles, and I realized, from the POV of the teacher, you only gave the ugly funny roles to the genuinely talented kids. The ones you knew could pull it off. Because it's actually a lot easier to play an attractive romantic lead than it is to play a goblin she-witch troll. So now I try to remember that the kids cast as the ugly one is probably gonna be upset that they didn't get the sexy romantic lead with the sweeping ballad. And I try to reassure them that they got the part not because they can't play the romantic lead, but that no one else was good enough to play their part. I'm pretty sure Casper Van Dien and Denise Richards were both cast in Starship Troopers specifically because they were conventionally physically attractive but also clearly dead behind the eyes. I wonder if they ever realized. IDK any unkind thoughts I had about Denise Richards disappeared when she took custody of her ex-husband's kids with his next wife. As a talent rep, most actors are self-aware enough to know their type and how Hollywood perceives them. Weirdly enough, it's the pretty ones that have issues, not the character type actors. Most character actors really like being character actors BC they get the fun roles. They enjoy uglifying themselves for auditions. Whenever my roommate, who's older, plump, and average looking, by Hollywood standards, gets an audition that requires someone ugly or fat, she enjoys it. She's like, awesome. I don't have shower or wear makeup today, and I get to let it all hang out. For the most part, character actors really don't take the descriptions personally. Somewhat related, I dated a guy I thought was stunning. Seriously, he was an 8 just getting out of bed in the morning. He was an aspiring actor. Problem was, he was Arabic, dark skin, nearly black eyes, wavy black hair. He knew he would often get typecast into certain roles, many of which would be unflattering, such as terrorist nut job. He knew it, but he was excited about it anyway, because he wanted paydays, and he loved acting. I imagine it's similar for people getting cast in conventionally unattractive roles. Attractiveness is so much about behavior, posture, styling, etc. Successful actors often cast in unattractive roles usually look totally okay in real life. During middle school, we had to do Mulan, and I played as some guy in the beginning that Mulan was forced to marry. My drama teacher didn't tell me this, but in the script Mulan literally said I don't want to marry him. He is ugly. As you can imagine, that was a massive blow to my self-esteem, especially in Ms. when there's puberty and hormones acting up. But looking back, I wonder what my drama teacher would say if she saw me right now. Good on you, homie, but your name is worrying me. I can't answer this, but if anyone is looking for an overweight 40-year-old male with flyaway hair and a bald spot starting in the back, give me a call. I would classify myself more goofy looking than ugly, but as my wife said on our wedding day, I will take what I can get. Believe it or not, some people make a nice living off ugly looks. I had a friend of many years who played the bad guy on every police and PI drama in the 70s and late 60s, and he was so far removed from the pretty gene pool, it wasn't funny. He did Hawaii 5-0 like 6 times in 11 years and no one noticed. He told me once that Forrest Tucker, F-Troop, told him, even Hollywood needs its ugly people. I've worked in casting before. Really funny to see a room full of people who look remarkably similar. Like a room full of redheads, chubby bald men, twins, middle class skinny blonde white women, men who look like wizards. These people must see each other all the time. I hope they have their own WhatsApp groups. I've done casting for clinical trial training videos, so I need very specific types with various disorders including acting with mental health problems or having obesity. For the BMI 30 role, I knew a musician friend who fit the bill. It was awkward for me, to be honest. I thought he'd be great in general, but also toward the end of the conversation I said that this role requires a high BMI and he laughed and said, "Don't worry, I'm still fat." I did my best to be polite. I mean, to be fair, his stage name has big in it. For 2 ATTEs, that's a bit sensitive as well. I needed a child actor too. So I ask at my local children's theater and the director recommends one boy who is a phenomenal actor and singer, and mentions even that he does have a head tick. He sounds absolutely perfect, even just as an actor without a tick. I call his mom and she seems happy to have him act for us. When I mention the role is for a kid with 2 ATTEs, she shuts me down and doesn't want to be contacted. I hired a girl we often use, but she couldn't play a tick to save her life. It made me sad because these are training videos for clinical investigators, and I wish that boy and his mom could have felt a bit more proud of being properly represented. He really was a great actor and singer who just happened to have two ATTEs. TBH, as a professional actor, it's so much easier to get roles if you have an interesting look. Some call it ugly, but it's basically a face you, or a casting director looking at hundreds of people every day, will remember. A good example could be that new actress who played the main role in Queen's Gambit of the classic, Benedict Cumberbatch. They were not typecast as ugly, even though their look is not the mainstream of beauty. It's also worth remembering it's possible to make an average looking human either ugly or drop dead gorgeous just by makeup, and if you're filming something, you have a whole team of people making sure you glow. There's plenty of naturally good looking actors, and some of the prettiest women I know have had the hardest time finding roles, because there's hundreds of other gorgeous white, blue-eyed brunettes with long hair and they do not stand out from the crowd at all. Meanwhile, I have a rather specific look and often get auditions of very niche characters, and often I'm one of the 20 people they could find in all of UK that sort of match the brief. Not to mention, if you go on agents' websites, they usually send all their pretty women and 20s castings with a portfolio of 10 plus clients, including me, even if I have a different look. But if they have a woman with short hair or black nerdy boy, they'll often have only one person matching the call in their books. I heard they make contracts with fat actresses to stay fat, like Rebel Wilson. Apparently they only hired her for the role to be the fat funny friend, but now that she lost weight she can't play those roles. I always thought she looked beautiful fat or skinny, but it's not right to not let a person lose weight just for a movie contract. But then again, actresses are out in weird diets and exercising regimes for movies. This made me think of an interview I once saw with Dustin Hoffman when he played a woman in Tootsie. They put the makeup on him and he said, "Wait, you aren't done. You need to make me beautiful." And the makeup artist said, "This is as much as we can do." And he started to cry, because for the first time, he felt such pain out there for women and people who weren't attractive, and there was nothing they could do about it. That's a weird story. Dustin Hoffman is not conventionally handsome in the first place, and extremely short to boot. His character Tootsie was always meant to be a plain, conservative middle-aged woman. I'm really not sure at what point in the makeup process he was thinking, they're going to make me look beautiful any minute now. Casting calls I've seen have been pretty straightforward, looking for large, bald middle-aged man to play gross chicken-eating neighbor in. As someone who gets casted in short, nerdy, ugly, or chubby roles in most theater shows I'm in, it feels nice to be wanted for something for once. I'm an actor, curvy white mustachioed man who would never be hired to sell perfume. But you know what? I have been hired as a model several times. Just because you're dumpling shaped doesn't mean there's not a place for you in the entertainment business. And if you're getting work and getting paid frickin'. And honestly, the roles I get and go out for are far more interesting usually than they would be if I had an 8-pack and was 6 feet 1 inches of square-jawed white boy salad. I went to a taping of American Idol. As we're going through the line, they're handing people tickets. When I get to the front, they give me the tickets from the back of the pack. I noticed, but it didn't register right away. When we got to our seats, they were in the back row, even though there was still plenty of seating available in the middle rows. My friend in LA auditioned for a role where they just needed a fat hairy butt. He got it. Got paid $300 for basically 30 minutes of work that day. I worked in casting for 10 years. Overall, it really isn't that awkward or difficult because the talent pool comes in all shapes and sizes. Talent agencies are a big help, as they'll usually just hit up their niche rosters for the casting call. When we were doing casting calls for print or commercials, often producers would request to see real people, which was always the Wild West. We'd either put a cattle call request out, or sometimes send an assistant to Hollywood Boulevard to recruit normal people off the street. We got normal, average people to crazies, weirdos and total psychopaths coming into audition. So if we had to audition obese women age 45-65 who are amputees for a diabetes medication commercial, we generally had no problem finding these people, and they were more or less chill and easygoing. The thing is, more often than not, everyone wants to be on TV even if it's a bit role. The script for Fargo has characters consistently refer to Steve Buscemi's character as funny looking. When preparing for the role, Steve asked what type of makeup or prosthetics they had in mind. No, we're good, Steve. A comedian in Norway once told a story about requesting props for a shoot for their comedy show where they said they needed a fatty, which was roughly translated a common name for the big mat you land on when you pole vault or do other gymnastics. Full stop. The assistant misunderstood and brought an extremely fat person to the shoot. That's an awkward conversation. There are difference between real life ugly and Hollywood ugly. Hollywood ugly is basic anyone who's not a real life 10/10 or a 10/10 wearing glasses. Also remember that attractive actors win Oscars for playing ugly characters. Like Charlize Theron in Monster, she was practically unrecognizable. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.